if you'd be interested in something like this, then we'd be working with you, right?
So I have the privilege of not being the salesman here. I'm the back office guy.
Okay.
So I work with a lot of churches and congregations when sometimes they come directly to us. Sometimes they work with a consultant and come to us. But so it is me. Generally, we like to have a consultant in the mix who's in your area, working in your region. So.
I mean, you are in our area.
Oh, where are you? I guess I didn't ask.
Middlebury.
Oh, you're Middlebury. Okay. My wife teaches at Northridge.
Oh,
She's a 7th grade teacher up there. So we just moved down January of last year from Pigeon. Yeah, it's new stuff for me.
I have been the it's called
Great.
the contact person from.
Oh, a consultant or whatever.
Yeah, and I've worked with.
Who? Oh, Marlene?
Yeah.
I know Marlene. I really like Marlene. She's great.
Yeah, it's Riverview, in White Vision.
Riverview. Okay. Okay.
So,
All right. Marlene's husband. Do you know Mark?
I don't.
I worked with Mark for a few months when I first came in, and then someone retired, and I came into this role I'm in now. So I got to know Marlene and Mark. We ate at Venturi's together with Marlene and Mark. It was one of our first interviews. But anyways, they're one of the reasons we came down. So. All right. Did I give everybody one? Phil, I think I owe you one of these, right? I don't think I gave you one yet. Okay. So you guys enjoying the conference so far?
Yes.
What's been the most positive thing you've gained from it so far?
Start to finish.
What was that?
Start to finish.
Start to finish, okay. It's not specific, but I guess that's good.
I like how they're intentional this year with the schedule, more interaction, more time for interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know, I treat this more as a reunion almost. I know for me it's been like all my Rosedale classmates' parents are here. Say hi to them all.
You said you were Pigeon River?
Yeah. Yeah. My dad is Calvin, and my mom's Gladys Maust, if you know them, potentially.
She was a byler from.
She was a byler from Greenwood.
Oh, okay.
You got it. Are we related?
Yeah.
Probably.
You
guys look alike.
Your great-grandfather would have come from Grantsville.
Yeah, okay, so you're Maust from
And
the
your
Grantsville area.
great-grandfather would be buried there.
I mean, I know I'm related closer to Maust in that area from the Byler side, too.
On the farm that I was raised on, it was the homestead, so.
Okay. Yep.
There's the Maust and Maust and Nagy's all buried down there.
I don't like this weight on my neck. I feel like
You guys.
he's Everett's guy. So, I'll take it for you. I don't think we've gotten your name on here. No pressure. I just want to know who I'm talking with later when I try and remember.
And your dad and mom are there.
Okay. They're running around right now. Yeah. Do you know what my mom? She had a surgery and had an LVAD put in. Did you know that? That they're like running around Delaware and all over the place after having that done. So they're enjoying themselves. If you're worried about them.
Sitting in the same row as you.
Yes, you may.
All right, Don. Not Conrad.
Right.
Yes. I had that earlier. Your name tag's higher, I see. Yeah, that helps. We're figuring it out. Here. There you go.
What you really need is the generation of the new young guys in here.
Well, they have more time to figure this out than some of you guys. So there are some urgent needs in your age band too. So I'm not too sad. We'll catch those guys later if they're not here today. Did you get those pens?
Yep.
Okay. If anyone needs a pen, he has a few back there.
Oh, yes, okay.
So bring now. Here you go.
Jeremy's coming.
All right, good. Oh, 1:30. We'll give him a few more minutes. I was thinking it started at 1:15 earlier, and I was just sitting by myself, feeling bad.
Feeling rejected.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I don't understand why you guys are talking about retirement when there's lots of other things happening. So that's confusing to me. It's not. I mean, it doesn't feel as exciting as discipleship or church planting or whatever else there is. But I'm glad you're here.
Depends, when you get older, retirement sounds pretty exciting.
Well, maybe it's exciting in a bad way. Yeah, that's true.
Becomes necessary.
Yeah, right. It's a dire need. All right. So you guys know I wrote 2 things on the board that I want to talk about that I forgot to talk about in the last one, and they aren't in my presentation. So keep me honest, and if I don't talk about them or address them, remind me today. I have a tendency to get distracted.
Right here, that one, orange shirt.
Alright, so Middlebury, Ohio. So would you be related to Emily Maust then? And, well, true.
I have an aunt.
Phyllis. What, was Phyllis her
I
mom?
have a cousin's daughter who's at
Yes, that's who I'm thinking of. Because Emily I got to know at Rosedale. And what's her brother's name? Adam?
Adam.
Yeah, I knew Adam a bit because their dad, he would come through Pigeon working on the ski hills because he made the snow machines for ski resorts. And so we'd always visit him in Bay City or something up. So that's my most connection to the Maust, probably over there.
He was my uncle's son. And my
Oh,
cousin,
okay.
my 3/4 brother, however you want to look at it.
Okay, 3/4.
Father identical twins and our mothers were sisters. So
Oh, okay. Interesting.
we always consider ourselves.
Yeah. All right. Come on in. Bob, nice to meet you. Jesse. Here, I'll give you one of these. If you need a pen, there's one right there, and then there's a sign-up sheet somewhere. Hi, guys. Grab a seat. Oh, sorry, I'm handing you a lot of stuff. You got a pen? Or, well, here, actually, I'll keep this. Here, you can just, I'll set it right here for you.
Oh, okay.
Hi. You'd like one of these?
Thank you.
All right. I have a few more of these, so we'll try not to. For the front row people, I'll keep my talking quiet. Hopefully, my spit in my mouth. You know? Yeah, right. Would you like one of your own? Like wing share. Wing share. All right. All right. I gave you guys want to share. Or are you good? All right. You need a pen? Hi guys. Would you like one too? All right. I think we're ready to roll. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming. My name is Jesse Maust. I work with Everence. I am the retirement services manager, which means a lot of things and nothing at the same time. But one of my responsibilities is I work with Mennonite Retirement Trust, MRT for short. And that's one of the things I'm going to be talking to you about today, in addition to just general retirement planning, for pastors specifically. So, maybe we'll say we got 2 other Everence folks here today. Bruce Breckville, he's the regional director, managing director, whatever the title is, of Kidron. And Glenn Black, he's a stewardship director in the same area. So, if you have any questions for them too, feel free to ask them. All right, so today, I kind of explained my job, not really, but Mennonite Retirement Trust, rather than there's a lot of different nuances and pieces of things I do, but what I do with pastors specifically is I work with them in 2 stages of life. The first is in retirement. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know if some of you remember this commercial from the early 2000s. We get a lot of people who say, I need my money and I'm not working anymore. How do I get my money out of my plan? This part of life is the end goal. That's what we're here to help you get to, where you can support yourself in retirement from what you've saved. The other part of where I work with you is the more important part, and the part that is definitely more complicated. I have the image of, the story of Moses when he needs to have his arms held up to win the battle, and having those people support him. Those people are your congregation in this situation a lot of times. I wouldn't say it's me. I'd say we assist them in supporting you. And how does that work? How do we know the best way to support our pastors with retirement? Because one of the reasons I'm where I'm at, this is a little personal story from when I was at Rosedale. After my freshman year, I interned at a Youth for Christ office in my hometown. And it was in the summer, and all I did was fundraise. So we had a little Bible study too with some junior hires or something, but all I did was fundraise, and it made me understand how much money impacts ministry and how it impacts the individuals, the organizations, and part of why I'm where I'm at is because of that, and I wanted to play a part in it. And so today, that's what I'm hoping to ease. I want to ease this burden on your shoulders so you can do your job better. All right. So goals for today. First thing, what are my needs for retirement? I'm not going to answer this, but we'll get started on it. Second thing, what tools are available for me to use to help me retire? We'll talk through those. More importantly, how do I communicate these needs and inform them of these tools to my congregation and church leadership? So a lot of things I'm going to talk about, this is part of my struggle, because usually who I talk with are church treasurers. And so part of this is you need to go talk to them about this stuff too, because they're going to be very involved in it. But just know you don't need to know everything today. It's a team effort. Okay, so let's talk about retirement planning in general. The first stage, actually I should take a poll here. Are all of you who's working pastor? Okay, any retired pastor? Oh. Retired pastor? Okay. Okay, so if you are working, I would consider you in the accumulation stage of retirement planning. You're not spending this money. You are growing this pool. You're putting money in, you're investing it so it grow. It's the longest part, it feels like, for what we interact with. It takes time to grow this pool of money. And it's all for the second part, when you need an income. You're no longer working, no longer getting a paycheck. How do you fund that part of your life? There's a few ways we'll talk through different aspects of retirement income here. The third is one that not everybody has the option to take advantage of. If you can take care of that income piece, it gives an opportunity to be generous. I think you've all have experienced that from members of your church. A little plug. My grandpa was in that video that Everins showed yesterday. That was his house in Florida that they gave. I cried yesterday after talking about it. I will try not to cry today. But it's very special to be able to have that legacy and to be part of that with my grandpa. So anyways, generosity, it's a big part of this too. And it's something that helps the feeling of, like, is this about me? Like, this is about you today. But it's also about what you can do for others. Okay, so we talked about the income piece. It's not just us. It's not just MRT or whoever your retirement plan is. There's a few different aspects. First is Social Security, which is an interesting conversation with pastors sometimes because some of you may not be paying into Social Security. But that is one of your main sources of income in retirement, likely. Second is retirement income. So these are from retirement savings accounts, 403B is what MRT is, or a 401k, or an IRA, potentially. Last, we have other sources. What did I say yesterday? So real estate's a big one. I've had a lot of people talk to me about real estate. They're all farmers, the farmers love talking about their income from their real estate they're renting out. What other sources? Maybe it's just a savings account. Maybe money you've socked away. Maybe it's, I don't know. Do any of you own I feel like there's a lot of Mennonites who have 10 kids that have a CD. Maybe it's royalties. Who knows? Anyways, it doesn't matter. But other sources of income that might not be from Social Security or retirement income. So one thing. Some of you know Burl Jancy. He had someone talk to him about, hey, here's how mine works, and I feel like it's a good representation. He likes to think of it as a third, a third, a third. Social Security, a lot of people expect Social Security to be what they live off of. That is not always the case. Social Security might cover a good portion of it, but they should be thinking about where else can I supplement that from, whether it's retirement or other sources. A third, a third, a third, kind of a good rule of thumb. Okay, how much income do I need? I don't know. It's a big question. One of the things I will say a lot is don't go through this conversation on your own. Generally, you are only going to retire once, maybe twice. Probably once though. So having someone to talk through this conversation with and to help understand the nuances of, okay, I'm retiring, how do I manage healthcare? How do I manage my expenses? Talking to a financial consultant helps with that a lot. That's what they're there for, and they go through that with lots and lots of different families and can help you work through that on your own. But if you want a quick answer, the quick answer is 80% of your income. That's an estimate of what you might need in retirement. Generally, the idea is that your expenses are going to go down when you're not working, whether it's not driving or, I don't know, maybe you wear the same shirt 2 years in a row. I don't know. But generally, your income's going to go down a little bit, but you're still going to have housing expenses. You're going to have to figure out healthcare. You're going to have to figure out lots of different things. So, good rule of thumb. All right, how much do I need to save to have that income? Another good question that I don't know the answer to. Another thing that a financial consultant or someone can help you with to work through. How many of you know about the pastoral salary guidelines that are on the Everence website? Do you guys know about that? Great tool, and it's something I'm working. I have a little influence on the retirement benefits piece of. In that piece, the suggested contribution amount is 8 to 10% of your income every year. So that's going into a retirement account. That's going to supplement that 1/3 piece of retirement income from retirement accounts. That one thing I'll bring up too, which it's a kind of a bigger conversation. I don't know, maybe it won't matter to you guys, but right now our pastoral salary guidelines say 10% coming from the church. I'd encourage you guys to think about putting some of your own skin in the game too. And what congregations can do with retirement plans is add a matching contribution where you put in $1, they put in $1. And if that's something that would help motivate you, well, maybe I should back up. The problem I see is a lot of pastors are getting contributions put in their retirement plan by their church, but they don't have any skin in the game and they don't really think about it, or it doesn't impact them like it is if it was coming out of their own pocket. And so it's this mentality of having skin in the game that really helps people save. And it's true not just for pastors, it's true statistically. If you have matching contributions, you save more. So just a thought, if that's something you're working with your congregation on, and it's something that would motivate you and you want to save more, it might be something to talk through with them. I'm talking a lot. Any questions? Question? Yes.
You might get to this, but I'm curious, like part of these thinking like side hustles, things pastors can do on the side that can help to supplement their current income. enough guys are pretty close to just being at what they need yearly. It can be very hard to save anything above that.
Exactly, yeah.
In your talks, have you gotten any potentially good ideas from other pastors or leaders of things that work well?
I think I'm going to add that to my list that I need to talk about. Hopefully I spelled that right and I'm not embarrassing myself. Okay, good. Being bivocational is an interesting conversation because that's kind of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, and it's,
I mean, maybe not like a whole job.
Time, but something that I
Yeah.
can work in on top of that,
Sure.
just to help to
Well,
create breathing room.
I don't think anyone was at our table last night. I had one guy talk to us about how he can do a turkey call and he can call in turkeys and is hired to do that.
Oh, wow.
So you can try that. No. Just kidding. No, that's a great question. We're going to talk more about bivocational, being by what other, I don't know that I have great ideas necessarily of what to do. I think maybe as a community, that's something we could talk about rather than just coming from me. But yeah, no, that's interesting. Being bivocational impacts retirement savings a lot. And in the way I see it, a lot of times for retirement savings, especially when a pastor's getting closer to retirement, they'll use their pastoral income to save 100%, and they'll rely on that bivocational, or if it's a spouse working, or some other income during that period. So I don't know what I'll say besides it's a good idea. If you can work that in, I think it's a good thing, and it helps you save. I mean, because that's the question: is how does a pastor have resources to save?
Right.
That's a big conversation we work through with congregations. So that's my non-answer.
That's fine.
Okay. Any other questions? You'll have opportunities later, so no pressure. Okay, so how do I save for retirement in the best way possible? There's easy ways. I mean, we all have savings accounts. That's one way. The problem with savings accounts or just traditional investment accounts is taxes. So savings accounts not as much because you're not going to, I mean, I guess nowadays you can earn a few percent, but that's what you'll pay taxes on, that earnings every year. With an investment account, you're going to be paying taxes on earnings, or if you trade in the account, there might be taxable events that are created in the account that you have to pay taxes on today. The government has created a variety of accounts that incentivize people to save for retirement, and that incentive is you don't need to worry about taxes until you take a distribution 5, 10, 30 years when you retire. So that's the type of accounts we're going to be discussing here. They're going to be tax deferred. Some are tax-free growth. That's Roth contributions, if you've heard that term. But essentially, the idea is these help me manage my taxes in a more efficient way. First things are personal accounts. You're going to know the IRA. IRAs are simple. There's something you control. There's something you contribute to. There's something you can access fairly easily while you still have a penalty potentially if you're taking it out early. There's the traditional IRA. So traditional IRAs are going to be pre-tax. So if you think about your paycheck, you have your paycheck amount. Well, depending on housing allowance, you guys are special. But for me, federal income taxes come out, Social Security comes out, and then what you actually take home is at the bottom. Traditional IRA contributions are going to come out of that top number. Before they're taxed, they're going into the account. Now, when you take that money out of the account in retirement, that's when you pay taxes on it. You're going to be paying whatever your tax rate is for that year, just like income from paycheck before. Roth IRA is the opposite. They're going to come out of the bottom of your paycheck after those taxes come out. But they're going to grow tax-free, and those distributions you take in retirement are going to be tax-free. It's a big benefit for people younger, people in a lower tax bracket than they might be in the future, but pastors are weird and different in this situation. We'll get to that when we talk about housing allowance. Employer plans. Okay, so the 401k is the traditional employer retirement plan. There's a few other types, though, that you might not be aware of. A SEP or a simple IRA. These are going to be in the name, simple plans that employers can set up without much complication, without much expense. 401k, also a 403b, so you guys essentially can think of them as the same thing. The difference for a 403b is that's going to be for nonprofit organizations. So that's what you're going to use in the church generally, not always. But these plans are going to be much more complicated, much more expensive for employers to open. The difference is they're going to be able to save a lot more. For traditional personal accounts, it just went up this year. It's $6,500, right? You guys know? I think it's...
Depends on your age bracket.
Oh, yes, plus catch-up potentially if you're over 55.
That went up to 75 this year.
Yeah, so it's $1,000 for personal accounts. So $7,500 max if you can do a catch-up. Employer plans are different. Simples, don't hold me to it. I think it's $14,000 you can contribute every year without a catch-up. So you could actually do a little more if the catch-up's more than $1,000 too. I forget, but around $14,000. A 401k, I believe for 2023 is $22,500 you can contribute yourself. On top of that, you can also have a total maximum between contributions from your employer directly and yourself of around $62,000. So these plans, they're gonna give you access to put away a lot more if you have the capacity to do so. Might not matter to a lot of you potentially. I mean, it depends on your situation. I was talking to somebody today who is bivocational and has agriculture, is involved in agriculture, has some income from that. And because of that, he can fund most of his pastoral income into a plan, and that number, 22,000, he might want to be able to contribute up to that amount. It depends. Some people might not be an option, but it's potential.
So you're saying by vocation, you are still able to take full benefit of the...
Yeah, so it's creative accounting, essentially. With employer plans, generally, it's supposed to be payroll deduction. So something you're being compensated is taken from your paycheck and being put in, or the employer is putting in it directly and bypassing your paycheck. So it's hard for, it's not like an IRA where you cut a check and put it in. So are there ways around that? Yes, but it's creative and nuanced, so. Okay, any other questions? The last one is one that you guys need to think of, not many other people do, but there are 403b church plans, MRT's one, that are exempt from a lot of the employment laws. ERISA is what it's called, ERISA laws, that other retirement plans are subject to. We'll go over the benefits of that, but it is a special type of plan that when you don't have to follow the rules, it gives you a lot more flexibility. You know, like the rules set pretty solid boundaries of this is how it works. With church plans, it's kind of the Wild West. You know, you get to do a lot of cool things. It's also hard on me to figure out what those things are and what we're saying we're doing. So that's one of the nuances with church plans. Any other questions?
That's something the government provides, or is that?
The church plan?
Yeah, the church plan.
So in a lot of laws that structure retirement plans, they exempt church plans specifically. So nonprofit. Well, so we'll get into who can participate in a church plan later. But I don't want to suspense. You know, no. There are specific exemptions for church plans that are written into laws. We have a great lobbying group called the Church Benefit Alliance that I got to talk with some of our people who work with the government officials to help write these laws recently, actually. And yeah, we have people in our court who are working with lawmakers to help us keep flexibility within these plans. So
This would apply to mosques and synagogues as well?
yeah. So that CBA, we actually have some Jewish church or Jewish synagogues as members too, which is a new thing. It's been interesting there actually because of that. Okay, so retirement plan contributions. What kind of money can I put in? So I talked to you a bit about money coming straight from your employer. That's what employer contributions are. They can only be pre-tax right now. I think that's actually changing, so my slide's a little old. But right now, you can only put in pre-tax money if you're getting it from your employer. If you're making your own contributions to these plans, you can do Roth or pre-tax if your plan allows it. So maybe I'll clarify that later. But for now, if you're making your own contributions, you can do them by paying tax initially or paying tax when you take it out. Okay, any other questions on retirement plan structure, contributions? We're moving on to investments, probably the more fun part of the conversation, maybe more stressful for some of you. Investing for retirement. What you need to think about is the risk you're willing to take. Risk, when in the context of investing, is not gambling. And sometimes it's hard to separate. For some people, investing seems like gambling to some degree. Like, I could lose my money, you know. It's true. You could lose your money by investing. And there are ways to invest in a guaranteed way if you're earning a specific interest amount. But generally, if you have time plus risk equals consistency, and you can make, you can make decisions based on that information to say, I have this much time, I can handle this much volatility in my investments, and I can take that risk, which helps me meet my retirement income goals. So there's a few ways to think about risk. The easy way to talk about is stocks versus bonds. Just real skin deep talk on stocks. Stocks are equity investments. You own a piece of a company. They're going to be more aggressive, but it has potential for higher returns because of that. Bonds are the opposite. You are taking or giving a loan to a company, and they are paying you back your money plus interest. Generally, bonds have collateral. The risk in both of these is, what if the company fails? Bonds, you have a secured interest, you have capital that is sold off that can fund your investment, potentially earning back some money. Stocks, if you own a company that doesn't exist, you don't own anything. So that's the risk, is that company disappears and nothing's left. Within retirement plans, I have target dates funds listed, but there's going to be investments that help you manage risk without having to think very hard about it. So the first example, with some of you may have MRT and have been in it a while, we have a moderate fund, or we have an aggressive growth fund, or a conservative fund. Those are going to help manage the stocks versus bonds ratio and help you set up a portfolio that has a volatility that matches your needs. In addition to that, and really an expansion of that idea, we have target date funds. Target dates are going to have a year associated with them, usually 5-year, 10-year increments. So mine is 2060. Should I smile? Just act natural? Okay. So target dates are going to have a year associated with them. Mine is 2060. The idea is I'm going to retire around 2060. So that portfolio is going to become more conservative the closer I get to retirement, the less time I have to manage that risk within the portfolio. So if you're looking, you're like, I don't know what to invest in my retirement plan, the target date is generally going to be a good vehicle. And it exists to keep things simple for people and help them get into an investment that makes sense for them. And finally, again, I don't know how much risk can have. It's a long conversation. Talk to somebody about it. They're going to be able to help you think through it. Okay. Sometimes I like to stick my head under the table when we have this conversation, but investing, I want to encourage you to think more about returns with investing. I have skin in the game. I used to work for Praxis Mutual Funds. They're one of the portfolios we hold in MRT. They're a faith-based investing company. They would be faith-based. Another term you might hear is SRI, socially responsible investing. That's going to be a broader definition. Is that the rain? I guess. It's going to be a broader definition. It's going to not necessarily be faith-based. There's going to be secular, socially responsible investing companies that are going to be environmentally focused, that are going to be socially focused on building up communities, helping them invest in companies that are helping communities grow and prosper. There's going to be governance. So maybe another term you might have heard of is ESG. Does that ring any bells for anyone? Maybe not. If you're investing, if you tell a financial advisor ESG, they'll know about it because it's a big conversation in that world. It stands for environmental social governance. And the idea is you're investing in companies that are promoting environmental things, you're promoting social things, they're having good governance structures, and you're able to invest in companies that are promoting that, divest from companies that aren't doing good things in that. Similar kind of idea. I have this, if you guys want to take it, no pressure. This is the Real Impact Report from Praxis Funds. I used to talk about it a lot more than I do now. But I really like the framework they build because when we talk about faith-based investing, a lot of times it boils down to something called screening, which I don't want to buy the companies that are bad. I want to cut them out of my portfolio, which is important. And it's something Praxis does. They screen out companies that don't meet the standards on abortion or pornography or alcohol. But today I'll encourage you, one of the things that investing that's hard with this conversation is it's hard to find an investment that is perfect. Perfection, we won't find it. You won't find perfection, or if you do, it's probably cash under your mattress because there's no other investment that's gonna be perfect. So I ask today, don't let perfection be the enemy of good that you can do with your investments. Try and find ways to do the best you can with these investments. Now, jumping back to screening. Screening is one aspect of how you can do good with your investments. Negative screening is cutting companies out. There's also positive screening. So if there's a company that's doing good, invest in it more. That's positive screening. There's a lot of different things. I'm not going to talk about them all today. My favorite, I'll talk about my favorite, community development investing. The idea behind community development investing is it's in between charity and investing somewhere. You're still putting money somewhere, earning a return, but that money is doing something good for the community. The one you guys know is microfinance, microloans. You are loaning money to someone, they're paying you interest, but it's people that need small dollar loans to feed their families, to earn income. There's a lot of stuff like that. There's affordable housing is a huge one. Building houses in areas that might not be as profitable to build houses in, that where people need them. People have to have a roof over their heads. There's ways, especially for organizations, if any of you are on boards of companies that have a big account they don't know what to do with, I'm not pointing at you, but community development investing is an option that you can do directly, not through Praxis. There's other organizations. If that's something you're interested in a way to put your money to work for something that's good, I'd encourage you to look into it. That's a bunny trail. Any other questions on investing? If you want to know more about impact investing is what Praxis calls it, or positive impact investing, I have a bunch of these. They're a year old, so I'm sorry they're a little stale. We don't have the new ones yet, but I'd encourage you to take a look. Okay, on to the most important conversation of the day. Housing allowance. Actually, I'm going to go to the next slide. Did you know, you're all taking housing allowance, right? All of you pastors are currently taking, you're not, okay.
How can you do it by vocational? Do I still qualify?
You would still qualify, yes.
Did not know that.
What about if there's a parsonage involved? Could I still claim like the monthly?
Yes-ish. So I will say, let me clarify before I get too deep. I am not the expert on what you can claim for housing allowance. I have some resources that I can provide you that address parsonages directly. There's a way it works, but don't ask me how today. But yes, if you're bivocational, the only thing, so here, to start this conversation, there's two things that need to happen for housing allowance to be applicable. First, you need to have an organization, a church-related organization, designating these funds, they're paying you as housing allowance. So that's your church today, right? The church is designating the housing allowance and you're getting paid that, and it's written on your 1099s at the end of the year. Second, that income needs to be earned while you're a pastor. What is the definition of pastor is a little funny. I mean, it depends. It's nuanced. Generally, it's ordinated, or what's the word? What's the word? Ordained. What the heck? You know what I meant. Yeah. Whatever. You need to be ordained as a pastor and working in a pastoral role. It doesn't have to be in a church. There's like some funny things with educators to some degree, and Christian universities. There's retirement homes hire chaplains. It's pretty broad. And again, we're going back to that. We get to break the rules because we're exempt, and it becomes this Wild West, like how does this stuff work? It's complicated to figure out because we aren't set by those specific boundaries. Okay, so remember those two rules of what you need to be designated housing allowance. You can meet these rules in retirement. So you can take housing allowance distributions in retirement. That is the thing I keep saying all week, because it's something people don't know. You don't have to be working as a pastor to take housing allowance designation. It's a huge benefit that takes time to prepare for. Because to do it, while you're working as a pastor, you need to contribute to a church 403B plan, essentially. There's other retirement vehicles. But you need to contribute to a church plan. And they can be contributions made by your church. They can be contributions made by yourself. These are going to be deferred compensation. So compensation earned as a pastor, but not paid until you're in retirement. So then who's designating it? The plan itself. So for MRT, we are designating 100% of your distributions can be housing allowance. You just need to tell us which ones are housing allowance. So we have pastors who fill out the housing allowance form, request money, and can get money that's housing allowance eligible, no taxes paid, not even Social Security taxes. So it's even better in retirement even. And you can get that tax-free. That's it. It's something people don't know. Are there any clarifications or questions on that? Because it's a big deal, and it's the best kept secret to some degree.
So this is, I'm not sure I'm following it.
Sure.
So this is money that you're taking, okay, for like those of us that get a housing allowance.
Yes.
Okay, so we take that.
No. So it doesn't matter if it's designated today. It's just money that you've put in a retirement plan.
Okay.
So nobody today has to do anything besides put it in the right place.
So it doesn't have to be an MRT. It could be Roth or anything? Or
So that is question number one I wrote down on the board because I forgot to address it yesterday. You can contribute to a 403B. Doesn't have to be a church plan 403B. And that money can be moved to a plan that designates it as housing allowance and distributed as housing allowance distribution. IRAs are a little trickier and generally not accepted because it's supposed to be money that's deferred compensation. An IRA contribution would be compensation you've received and then you write off. So it's nuanced. But if it's in the right place, yes, you can do it. It doesn't have to be in a church plan initially, but if it ends up in a church plan, yes. So that's a conversation with, so maybe I should clarify, housing allowance, I am not the expert. Please don't just take my word for it, talk to a CPA. They're gonna be, I wish I had, someday referrals are funny in our industry, but I wish we had a list of CPAs who worked with housing allowance people, but find someone or educate your accountant on what housing allowance is and how it works. It's very important to have that relationship because these, especially initially, setting them up takes a lot of work with this. But the benefits are great. So I'm losing my train of thought. Any other questions? I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say is housing allowance can happen there and now and later. That's the main point.
So you would be receiving the income as housing allowance later.
Yes.
So you'd have to pay taxes on it
Yes.
at that point.
Right. Well, no, you wouldn't pay taxes on it because it's housing allowance eligible.
Okay.
You would if it was just a normal
Yes,
distribution.
yes.
So Jesse, I understand that MRT has the 403B
Mhm.
plan, but a church could have their own 403B, or a 501c3 could have their own
Mhm.
403B. Is that correct?
Yes. So that brings up a good conversation because a 501c3, we have a lot of people who might work for an organization in a non-pastoral role that's in MRT still, and then they become a pastor. What dollars are eligible for housing allowance? So I get to say, I don't know. That's something you have to figure out. You have to know which dollars are housing allowance eligible. You tell me, and then I give them to you. I usually don't get to be brainless, but that's one thing I get to be brainless on, and that you guys need to know, which we can help you figure that out. But that's one thing for some people who have been in different roles, in different situations, you need to be aware of and have a plan beforehand. Now, if you were in a pastoral role in that 501c3 and contributed to a 403b, then yes, you'd be able to move that to a church plan and take it as housing allowance. Does that make sense? I think I answered your question.
But if you have the 403B plan as under the umbrella of the 501c3, then you can do anything that you could do as a church plan.
Right. Yes.
Because it is a 403B.
Yeah. Well, so the thing is, you have to have someone designate it. So when you're taking that distribution, like a 403B with a mutual fund company isn't going to do that.
Mhm.
That's where you need someone who's being intentional about designating that distribution as housing allowance.
Housing.
So it has to get there
Okay.
somehow. Rollover, if some of you know the term rollover, is the word we use.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? Okay, I have a bunch of things I'm not an expert on here. I think probably you guys know better than me if you're already taking housing allowance. What can I claim for housing allowance? It's not just your mortgage. There's lots of things that qualify. There's insurance, there's furniture, there's whatever. Don't ask me, ask your accountant. Keep track of this stuff, because if you know, you can claim it. I haven't lived this, but I know it can happen. The IRS will be paying attention to people who don't pay taxes. And be sure that if you're not paying taxes on something, you know why and you have the evidence. So that's important in this conversation, is tracking this stuff and having a plan that you can show someone else who says, are you sure you're supposed to be doing this? Something to consider. Retirement contribution versus net salary. Okay, so do you guys want to do a math problem right now, or should I save it for the end? I mean, I'm throwing a lot at you. Okay, I will talk about it now. One of the nuances, so we're talking about housing allowance today, taking housing allowance as a pastor. A situation we run into, what can I contribute to my retirement plan? What am I allowed to contribute? So we have this 22.5 contribution limit. I apologize for my handwriting. That's how much you can contribute to the plan. There is another qualification. You need to have this much income to be able to contribute it. So you have to be being paid at least $22,500 to contribute $22,500. So let's say someone's being paid $40,000. This is your salary, but half of this is housing allowance. You're only paying taxes on $20,000. You're only taking $20,000 of income. So you can only contribute $20,000 if that's the case. So housing allowance today does impact what you can save. But there's a loophole with a lot of stuff. You have a $40,000 allowance. You can contribute over this line for this much money at any point in your career, but only that much. So it never refills. It's not something that's annual. So let's say you wanted to contribute 22.5, you would take, I made a half. but you would take 22 and a half out of this, so that's 37.5, and you would be able to do 37 and a half more throughout your career. So this number is just this special, this is what question number 2 I want to talk about, special contribution limit that you can contribute over this line of income you're being paid from the church.
Per year or?
Ever. So this never refills. You only get 40K forever. And if you meet that limit and you go over it, IRS is gonna tell you, why'd you do that? Pay me back. Or they're gonna force you to take that money out of the retirement plan and pay taxes on it. Not fun. It's frustrating for administrators at your church. It's complicated. We have to do that every once in a while, but yeah, it's not fun to pay taxes on surprise taxes either. So that's my only math problem I'll throw at you today. Any questions on that? Any other questions generally? Your eyes are glazed over a little.
Okay, so I
Yes.
have a question. Okay,
Yes,
so,
yes.
So say, like there's not necessarily a limit on the housing allowance amount, but say you made 40,000 and you took 30,000 as your housing allowance.
So that would be 10K.
Right, but it's only what you actually use of that, right, at the end of the year?
Yeah, so if you're saying you adjust it,
Yeah.
so that's a question of like the timing, because this limit is per year. So there's no like, well, I guess you could backdate it potentially.
But you
You could be creative if you adjust, well, because you're going to adjust it in March, right? That when you do your taxes. And so backdating the contribution, you're already going to get your 1099s. It's a logistical question because the math's already going to be figured out and you're going to have to go back to multiple sources to fix it. I think it's possible potentially though. So, other questions? Okay. All right, so we've talked about a lot of things generally, how things work. Now I get to talk about what I do specifically. Mennonite Retirement Trust was started in 1960. It was started as a retirement plan, a pension plan technically for, I think, well, I don't know if it was MCUSA at that point, but by that organization initially. It branched out to other denominations. So we serve the CMC and we serve the missionary church, potentially Brethren Church too. So we serve a lot of different congregations as a 403B or a 401A plan. How many of you have a 401A account? Do we need to talk about it? Yeah, okay, we'll talk about it a little. MRT used to be a 401A. It still is, but we're not opening new 401As. This is what we were originally because we had a pension feature where you could annuitize your money where you get $500 every month forever until you pass away. We no longer have an annuitization feature in MRT. And we started the 403B because it gives an additional feature of you being able to make your own contributions. 401As only allow employer contributions, not employee contributions. So there's a lot of people who still have 401A accounts. It's likely because only your employer is making those contributions. If that's something you want to do, you need to open up a new account with us, work with us to create a new adoption agreement. If you want to make your own contributions. Otherwise, it's still serving the purpose. Okay, that was Bunny Trail. We are a 403B, 401A church plan. We are exempt from ERISA laws. That means the employer has a lot more flexibility to say who and who can't work with this plan. ERISA laws are built around retirement plans. Retirement plans, the idea is employers and highly compensated leaders in those businesses can contribute a lot of money and tax defer a lot of money, but they have to contribute to their lower paid employees too. So it's this trade-off, incentivizing them to help their employees save for retirement. Church plans get some flexibility in the specific rules they're going to require there. So for congregations, that means who's eligible. We'll say this in our adoption agreement of the plan. Who's eligible? You can say Kevin, the pastor. You can be super specific, or you can be more broad. You can say lead pastors, or you can be more broad, people who work 40 hours a week. And you have the flexibility to say whoever you want to be eligible. That's what's special about church plans, in addition to other things. MRT is also a multiple employer plan, which this is a wonky conversation, which I like, but I'll try to not bore you with it. But essentially, MRT is one employer with lots of different employers in it. So where this gets funny, and you guys might experience this, I was talking to someone today who was at one MRT church, had a 401A there, moved to a different church, opened up a 403B, and he now has 2 accounts because he had one here, he had one there, and he can't combine them because technically he is still employed with both churches because he's employed with MRT because it's all under this umbrella. And you can't move your money out of your account while you're still employed. That's one of the rules of saving money in a retirement plan. So one of the nuances within MRT is that kind of, it makes things more complicated, but you also get the benefit of working with 800 congregations, 400 employers, a total of $500 million in assets that negotiate fees and expenses. So, who is involved? So, this is again a little long. Maybe I should start here. A lot of this conversation doesn't matter to you guys. It matters to your church treasurer. So while we're talking about this is stuff you'll want to pass on to your church. It's not going to impact you. You're worried about your retirement income, but the structure of setting up your plan is something that is going to impact your church. So while we're thinking about who's responsible for what, who's involved, this is stuff that don't feel like you need to know, but this is stuff we can work with your congregation on. All right, who is involved? Plan sponsor, MRT. The plan sponsor in retirement plans generally is the employer. MRT takes that role on and takes some of the liability off of those employers. That's a benefit that isn't necessarily monetary instantly, but it's this pressure that's relieved from employers. The plan administrator is Everence. So Everence does not own MRT. MRT is its own thing, and we service MRT by administering the plan. We are, in essence, the brains behind the plan. Record keepers Empower. If you guys have MRT, your statements are going to be branded and sent from Empower. They are a retirement plan provider. They're one of the biggest in the country. They manage our assets, manage the investments. You can change investments with them. You get your statements from them. They track the daily valuation of those investments so you can know what your account is worth every day. Who has been involved in MRT before 2011? Anyone? Maybe? Before 2011, MRT was valued monthly, meaning if you needed a distribution, you had to wait until the end of the month when someone told you what your account was worth. Today, you can do it daily, which is a huge blessing to not have to wait for money, because people need, usually when you need a distribution, you don't need it in a month, you need it tomorrow. So that's something Empower does for us. They give us a lot of efficiency and manage a lot of these day-to-day stuff. They're not going to have the brain powers, though. Everence is the people approving your distributions, making sure you're doing them correctly, working with your congregations to make sure your plan's set up correctly. Everence is also the investment advisor. We have a team that manages the investments available in MRT, and that's something that's going to be a benefit to the employers because that pressure is taken off of them to pick investments that are worthy investments to invest retirement assets in. The employers, your congregation in this instance, we'll talk about some other employers that can participate too, but generally they're the people who are employing the participants, which is you. All right, who can participate? Any Mennonite, Anabaptist affiliated, broad term, that's something we work through as we bring people in. Some are obvious. If you're a CMC church, you're in. Some were CMC churches or were MCUSA churches. If they have a history with Mennonite or Anabaptist faith, they can come in. We can serve self-employed pastors. So this is maybe too simple of a definition. When I say self-employed, I mean not associated with the church. So traveling pastor or some other, they're getting paid preaching or whatever. We can work with them. We can work with congregations who hire a full-time or part-time pastor. We can work with QCOs, the fun acronym, Qualified Church Control Organization. So these are going to be, it's not a simple definition, but essentially the church is in control of this organization financially, or just their leadership as church members, church people. One example I have recently is a daycare that was opened by a church. It's its own organization, but it's funded directly from the church, QCO. Now there's non-QCOs, which are non-qualified church-controlled organizations. These are going to be ones that are affiliated with the church, not necessarily controlled by the church. So RBC would be a non-QCO in this situation. Even though we're very much affiliated with the church, it's not directly controlled or funded. They get their funding from students that come in or the government or whatever. Broad definitions. Why do these matter? I think they matter to you in what, so I didn't say this earlier. You're here for yourself to learn about your own retirement today. I also want you to be an advocate because MRT is a big opportunity for small organizations, large organizations in your community. It's an easy way for those organizations to support their employees, and many of you might be involved in that. If you see an organization or are part of leadership in an organization that you feel like might benefit from this, this would be an opportunity for them. Go ahead.
Are you saying that, for instance, all the faculty and staff at Rosedale Bible College would qualify for the housing allowance? That's not what you're
no, because
Okay.
they're not earning income as a pastor.
Okay.
That's a good question though, because like our RBC alum pastors, no, I don't know. That's one thing I haven't figured out.
Thinking about faculty and staff, and especially those who would be ordained,
Right.
licensed, perhaps credentialed in some way, but their role is at the college rather than in a local congregation.
I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no either. It's complicated.
Or
But-
employees, what about employees of Rosedale International, the mission organization? Are they a QCCO or a non-QCCO? Because they're owned by the college.
Well, the housing allowance doesn't necessarily, the organization type doesn't impact housing allowance. What impacts it is whether they're a pastor, and that's how you have to figure that out, is are they in a pastoral role? There's some definitions that the IRS has given to define what a pastor is, and that's really a CPA question, somebody who understands the laws around housing allowance. So,
Jesse, I know at the time
Yes.
when I served as a college chaplain, I was able to claim
right,
housing allowance because my role on campus was a pastoral role,
So maybe a
whereas faculty could not.
right.
a dean of students who
Possibly a dean of
basically
students.
functions as our campus pastor.
That's possible.
Yeah, it's
But
an
definitely
interesting
check with the
question.
CPA.
Yes.
Whoever's signing this
One
document.
thing I get to put my head under the table for is tax questions. I'm not allowed to answer tax questions, so ask somebody else. Because I don't know, and I'm also not allowed to say. And I also don't know. Yes.
I serve with a 501c3 that is not directly affiliated with CMC, but as an ordained minister within CMC, if I am appointed by the executive committee to serve in Hearts Alive, I can take housing allowance.
Okay. Wait, is that a question, or are you saying
No,
you can?
I'm just saying that's how we do it.
That's how you do it.
And it's legit.
Mhm.
So my tax guy says.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's creative. You can be very creative with this stuff. That's the benefit of not having to follow the rules and being a church plan and
But
being a
that's
pastor.
Because that wouldn't work if you weren't an ordained minister within CMC.
I
Yes.
understand that's true.
Yeah.
Right.
So that came first, and then you started your own 501c3 marriage ministry thing. Is that, yeah, that's okay.
Right. Let's skip plan features. Let's talk about what does it cost. Because why does MRT matter? Like, you get why MRT matters to pastors, right? Like, housing allowance is a huge deal. not paying taxes on that income. Big deal, right? There's also another benefit. It costs nothing for employers. It's qualifier, not nothing. It does cost time and effort, especially for congregations who have to have some volunteer manage the contributions to the plan. Not always simple, especially during transitions, when the plan's starting, when the plan's changing, when employees are changing. There is a cost in time and effort. That being said, the church isn't going to pay a dime in real money to start this up. That is unique. I'm trying to learn who else people could work with potentially. One of the plans I know of is, have you guys ever heard of the Timothy? I always think the Timothy group. It's not them, and I always get them mixed up. The Timothy plan. There's mutual fund investments called Timothy plan. They have a church plan called the Master Plan, I think. I think that's what it's called. I forget. But it's essentially the same thing as MRT. The difference is you're going to pay administration costs, and you're going to pay what we call an A-share load. It's a front-end load where you're paying a commission up front. Those are going to be reduced in MRT. You're not going to pay administration fees. You're not going to pay an A-share front-end load on those investments for participants. Oh, before I get too far, we should explain the other cost. So employers don't pay anything. Somebody has to fund this thing. How do we pay the bills, keep the lights on? And participants are going to pay those fees. So we have one fixed annual fee. So for those of you in MRT, you're going to see $2 deducted from your statement every month. That says $24 per year. It's a fixed participant fee. Then there's also investment fees built into the performance of your investments. So you're not going to see these on your statement. You're going to see them in your returns. So if your returns are 3%, it's going to be reduced by 48.5. It's going to be 2.5, 2.55, whatever, or 2, whatever. You know what I mean. I struggle to do math without writing it down.
Now, participants know how to, okay, employers, there's no startup fee, but if they do a matching rent.
True. That is a good point. There is a cost, whatever they put in for their participants. That is a cost. You do not have to, though. You can set this up and have it available for your participants to contribute themselves. So, true. That is a good thing I should have thought to add, because that is an expense. Any other questions on this aspect of it? Any other questions generally? Okay, let's jump back to plan features. These are some of the things you can do. We've kind of already talked about these, but you can have employer contributions, you can have employee contributions. Employer contributions, only pre-tax, only traditional. Same thing, pre-tax, traditional. Employee contributions can be pre-tax or after-tax, traditional or Roth. One thing we offer in MRT is the Roth conversion. Roth, again, might not be applicable to you because of housing allowance, but if you wanted to, you can pay taxes on a portion of your balance within MRT and transition those assets from traditional to Roth. If you're in a year where you're like, I can afford some income on my taxes, you can convert assets from traditional to Roth and then have those Roth contributions available for after-tax distributions in retirement. IRAs can do this. They've always been able to do this. Roth conversions in employer plans is kind of a new thing. And it's something we offer. To do this, your employer needs to allow it, so it might require an adoption agreement amendment. So a little bit of upfront work to get going. All right, the last two they're really not relevant to you. Auto enrollment is for larger employers who want to incentivize isn't the right word, who want to encourage their employees to save. So rather than opting into saving for retirement, they're going to auto-enroll them into contributing whatever amount they say, and they're going to have to opt out of saving that to not do it. So if it's 2%, that new employee is going to start contributing 2% unless they say, I don't want to do it, and sign a paper. Statistically, this makes people save way more if they have to opt out. It works. It feels maternal, but man, it really helps people save. And it's hard for people to say, like, yeah, maternal is the word I use. It feels like you're like, come on, you kid, you do what you're supposed to do. But it does work. And the goal for employers should be to help their employees save. Vesting. Man, that rain gets me every time. Vesting. Don't have vesting. This is an option, but don't have your congregations have vesting. It's complicated. The idea behind vesting is it's an encouragement for employees to stay employed with you. For an employee to be fully vested, to have earned that money that you've contributed to the plan, they have to stay there for a certain period. So 5-year vesting is kind of the traditional rule. So every year they earn 20% of what you've contributed to their plan. And if they leave at a certain point, let's say they leave at year 3, they're going to be only 60% vested, and they're only going to be able to take that 60% with them, and the 40% that's left stays with the employer. Why don't I want you to do this? Because it's complicated, and your treasurer is going to have a really hard time managing that. It's not worth it. Just be 100% vested. We'll leave it there. If you really want to talk about it, we can, but I don't want to. Okay. All right, so this is, again, a conversation not for you. This is a conversation for your treasurer, but you need to be aware of it. How do I join MRT? First thing is get a hold of somebody at Everence. My number is on the front page of that handout I gave. Well, it's actually our retirement services office. You can call us. You can also talk to a consultant from Everence. Any Everence person, you say, help me with MRT, they'll connect you to us and maybe a financial consultant to work together on getting this set up. Once we get contacted, the first step is to fill out an adoption agreement questionnaire. This goes over certain plan features that you need to make decisions on. So who's eligible? How much are we contributing? Are we going to allow certain types of things in our plan? You make those decisions, we build you an adoption agreement, you sign off on it, and then we get the system set up. So Plan Service Center is where people can make contributions online. This is one thing I will say today. If your treasurers are sending checks to Empower right now, there's a better way to do it. You can do it online. Have them talk to us, and we can get that set up. We have many problems with checks in the mail. First of all, it's a security risk. Information is being sent in the mail, sent to the wrong place. Second, it's slow. Money in the mail takes a week to get there, and then if it's wrong, somebody from Empower has to call your church, and inevitably the treasurer only works Tuesdays, so they can't get a hold of somebody. It just works way better online, and if it's somebody that has the capacity to manage an online account, it works better. So let us know if that's something that we can help you with. So we set up that access, we train your volunteer or whoever on payroll, we get whoever is eligible in the plan enrolled in the plan, so they get their investment selection, they get their beneficiaries set up, and you start socking money away, and once it's up and running, it's up and running. Any questions on that? That is there's a 30-second conversation that really is a 2-month-long process. That is one thing I'll ask Grace on. Whenever we transition something in MRT, it's slow. It's not opening an account, signing something, and it's done. It takes time and grace. You know, I feel like with setting up stuff in MRT, we have to apologize a lot because things take time, inevitably. So yeah, complicated situation. Questions? The end is near. Don't worry. The end is near. Okay, so let's talk a bit about what responsibilities your church has. The church is responsible to abide by the plan document. So that means they have to do what they say they're going to do. So when you originally create that document, you're setting up the rules of how you're going to operate with the plan. This person's eligible at this point, and we're contributing this much. If you don't do that, and somebody finds out, the IRS potentially, but if we find that, hey, this person was supposed to be getting contributions a year ago, 5 years ago, and they weren't, we have to go back and fix that because we said we're doing this and we didn't do it. So how does that work? First, you figure out how much was supposed to be contributed. Then you figure out, okay, this should have been invested. How much earnings were on this money? And then you have to cut a check and pay it back. Not fun. It's not a fun conversation to have with the church treasurer who has to go and fix this with their pastor. We've had situations where the pastor calls us and they're like, hey, my account doesn't seem like it's the size it should be from what I'm expecting. I haven't looked at it in 5 years. What's going on? Not fun conversation with the church treasurer who, this comes up because treasurers change and things aren't handed off because somebody was doing it this way and they didn't realize. Somebody might pass away. You know, we run into that situation where things just get dropped because the person that was working on them might not be there. It's important for the church to understand to some degree there's responsibilities and somebody needs to be paying attention to those. Making contributions correctly. The 401A conversation is part of this. Like that 401A can't have employee contributions, but Empower will let you, and then it's wrong later. So just being aware of that stuff. And data. So we talked a little bit about you can't get your money when you're employed. It's important for employers to have accurate information in the system. So if that previous employee wants to get their funds, they can. And we're not holding them up because we don't have the relevant information to say this person is no longer employed. So a few of the responsibilities, again, probably not your problem. Probably somebody at your church's problem, but something they need to be aware of. Okay, who is Empower? Empower is a big player, probably one of the most important players for you because they're the website you're going to go look up all your information, make requests through, change your investments. They're going to be responsible for showing you your investment performances. You're going to be able to call them or log onto the website and change your investments if that's something you want to do. They also have planning tools. So you can say, here's my retirement savings. How much will this make me? Will I be able to meet my goals? And might give you a percentage. You're going to request paperwork to change things or access your money from them. They also have an app. So if you like to look at stuff on your phone, they have an app. Okay, investment options. We talked about this. We have a variety of investments. Our target dates and risk base are going to be built out of these two. We build it out of all those because this is a wonky conversation, I apologize, but managing investments in a company is a liability because there is a lot of lawsuits in the retirement plan for people saying, why am I invested in this? It wasn't good for me. And they'll sue people and they're managing the retirement plan. So it's our job to make sure we're making prudent decisions for our participants. One of the ways we're doing that is doing those target dates, making sure they're invested in an investment that is prudent for them, that makes sense for them. And in that, we're making sure we're picking investments that meet certain standards within that. So we're picking out of a limited pool of investments to pick as many faith-based SRI investments as we can. Complicated process. We have 7 CFAs. If you know what CFA stands for, it's Chartered Financial. What's A?
Advisor?
No, it's not advisor though. What is it? That's not it either. I don't even know. Analyst, geez. What was the word I said? Ordinated? Anyways, struggling with words today. Anyways, a CFA, they're a very rare thing. It is very, very hard to get that degree. The people who get CFAs are large investments. They're managing large investment pools of investments. And we're lucky enough to have 6 of them on our team that are making these decisions in a way that is making sure it's for the best for the participants in the plan. It's a big deal for employers. That's what you need to know. And as a congregation, not something you need to worry about. For our employers that are, let's say, a retirement community that's in MRT that hires 500,000 employees, very big deal. It's a liability. Also a good thing for you as participants, though. Somebody's watching out for your money. Okay, how can I access my money? Let's talk about before you're retired, which I have these in the wrong order. So the first option is a hardship distribution. This is generally, it can be disappointing conversation to have because the IRS defines what is eligible, an eligible expense for a hardship distribution. So we get a call from someone saying, hey, my furnace died and I need access money in my retirement account, and I have to say, sorry, the IRS doesn't let us give you a distribution for that. There are health care expenses can be deducted, but we need documentation for that. Long story short, it's complicated. It's not easy access, but it is one way you can get your funds prior to retirement. The second is if you're old enough. So if you're 65 and still working, you can take an in-service distribution. Now, a lot of you know 59.5 maybe from IRAs. It's a little different in MRT. MRT is going to be 65. IRAs, you can take at 59.5. And separation from service, if you're not working, you can get your money. If you're not working for an MRT employer, that's important. You can have access to your money. Before 59.5, though, you're going to pay a penalty, 10%. And after retirement, that's that separation of service too. So, okay, time for my second conversation. Did I? Oh, I sort of talked about it already, didn't I? Okay, our rollover is eligible. We talked about this. If they're contributed to a eligible plan, so that is if it's deferred compensation. IRAs generally not, but worth asking, worth figuring out if that's something you have access to. It's worth looking into if you can bring that money into the plan. Oh yeah, this is a good conversation. What if I decide to roll money out of MRT to somewhere else? Is it housing allowance eligible? Depends on where you move it to. You need that organization to designate as housing allowance. Some people move out of MRT into an IRA and then they're like, wait a minute, I didn't know that I could take that as housing allowance. Move it back in. Is that eligible? It came from an IRA. Yeah, kind of. It depends. We have to work through it. So stuff to think about if you're in this situation. No answers today. It's something we have to work through. All right. Oh yeah, I don't know if I said this already, but this is one of the things I don't have to answer and I have to throw back at you. I can't tell you if dollars are housing allowance eligible. That's something you have to figure out. If that means you were a pastor and these dollars were contributed as when you were a pastor, that's something you need to know, you need to have evidence of. It's not something I can help you with directly, but obviously you can work with us to help figure it out. Okay, finally, we have our website. If you take a picture of this is a QR code. If you take a picture of this and click on the link that shows up, it'll take you to our website. Feel free to do so now if you want to. At our website, you will see all of our plan documents. So that's really nerdy stuff to some degree if you want to get into the weeds. Also the adoption agreements and the options that are built into that. Our administrative manual, that's what your treasurer is going to need. That's going to show them how to manage the plan with the church. Frequently asked questions. There's a housing allowance FAQ. There is one of the things we didn't talk about today, which might be relevant really, is missionary contributions. Were any of you missionaries at any point while participating in MRT? No? Okay. Missionaries, if you're working overseas, you can get contributions to MRT that have some tax advantages, but they're interesting to manage, so just something to be aware of for some of you. Finally, we have a resource. This QR code isn't going to take you here. If you're interested in that, reach out. This is the Ministries Tax Guide and Finance from, I forget the organization. Do you know the organization? It's like EFCA, but I forget what it stands for. Evangelical Finance something. They put together this comprehensive 200-page guide that I will not print out for you. I will email it. But you can access this. This is what I would give your accountant. If your accountant's like, what's housing allowance? Give them this. It goes over the description. This is what's going to cover that parsonage question, which I will email that to you, just because I know you want it.
200 pages.
Yeah. It's only 60 pages on housing allowance, though. There's other stuff. Anyways, it's not a hard read. It's just big. But yeah, resources here if you're interested. Resources also, call us. I have my number on the front page of this packet for our retirement services. Feel free to ask for Jesse if you don't get me right away. Andrew Small is also our retirement plan administrator. He's going to do a lot of the day-to-day stuff with your treasurer. Ask your financial consultants. Everyone's financial consultants are in the know on MRT. They're in the know on housing allowance. Some, it's complicated though. So some of them need help from us too. So we're usually in the mix because it's not, as you can tell, we talk for an hour on it and you might still feel confused. It's confusing. So we're here to work through it with you as you need. Finally, is there any other questions? Anything we didn't address? Did I cover my... Okay, we didn't talk about... Well, did we talk about being bivocational? Yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about it. I mean, the thing is, this income question, like, do you have income you can contribute? Because that's the question. To make a contribution, you need to be paying or getting income from your church. So that's the biggest question in being bivocational is that income question. Trying to think. Sorry, I'll leave it up to you. What questions do you have? You have to ask me one question before you can leave.
That 22.5, that is a yearly housing allowance allowable?
No, that is how much you can put into the plan yourself. So actually, that's a good question. How much can be contributed to the plan total? It's not this number. You can have... this is how much per year in 2023 you can contribute in total. So of that, 22.5 is your contribution. And any amount above that is from your employer. So currently, this is how much you can put into the plan, as long as you have the income to do so in this part, or whatever your employee decides to contribute for you. All right, that qualifies as one question, so I guess you can go. But is there any other questions? No? Well, let me say it's been an honor and a blessing to be able to be here. Personally, it's just been really refreshing to be here and be able to communicate with you guys. I appreciate the work you're doing for the congregations in CMC. You're doing good work. Being a pastor is not an easy job. And I want you to know we're here for you if you need help. We're here to support you. And so if there's anything we can do as Everence, if there's anything we can do with retirement, let us know. Thanks.
Thank you, Judge. 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 Thank you, Judge.